we want to, we can leave your friends behind.
Welcome back to Shade Tech Radio, and thank you for listening. This is episode 3. I'm your host, that's Sock Puppet. With me is my co-host, Ginter.
How you doing, everybody? Ginter here.
So after last week's episode, we wanted to bring back Hawkshot as a third host, but he got a new job recently and had to decline. So we wish him the best of luck and look forward to having him stop by possibly as a guest in the future.
You wish him best of luck.
Well, I wish him best of luck. Ginter's a little bit salty.
I'm just messing.
Anyway, so with that, let's just jump right in. So for the Intelligence Annex this week, state of the game, basically it was all 1.7. They started talking about parts of it, not everything though. Basically, they don't have an ETA for it yet, but the PTS should be inbound soon, and they did mention that it should be for all platforms. So this week, Hamish was joined with Gabe, and then Tom and Mark from Ubisoft Reflections. And like I said, they kind of went over 1.7, and they did show what would be considered a development or dev build of the game to kind of give an idea of what it might look like. So they talked about global events in 1.7 and how they'll bring modifiers to the entire world. In addition to that, there'll be special mission playlists where players can earn tokens during global events that they can then, at a later time, cash in for special caches or rewards. They mentioned that the global events will run for about a week during each month, and that they'll have a bunch of different modifiers that they'll kind of rotate through, and that their hope is that the I know those clowns in the background.
I don't even know what they do back there. They're just sitting there very still.
Government jobs, just looking busy. But their plan is that since they're going to be using different modifiers, it'll force players to kind of play the game in a different ways. That the week leading up to a new global event, they figure players will be crafting new gear, adjusting builds, kind of testing their play style so they can be ready for those global events. The global modifiers, they said, will always be positive and help the player, but the activity or modifiers that you can put on each mission will be more of a challenge or hinder the players. They did talk a little bit about the modifiers. They displayed the Rotten to the Core modifier, where NPCs' heads explode when you kill them with a headshot, and then they deal bleed damage. It kind of like explodes off them in a plume of green goo. They also talked about the Danger Zone modifier, where players will do more damage if they're closer to an NPC and will take more damage if they're farther away. One of the last ones they showed was one of the activity modifiers called Poisonous, where NPCs are poisonous, and as players get within a certain area of effect around those NPCs, players will start taking damage. And the big thing is that they encourage players to, if they have different ideas for modifiers, to post those up on the forum, the official forums for the game, and then the devs will look those over. If there's something that they think that they can use, they'll try to put those into the game. So they really do want player feedback on that. They mentioned leaderboards coming with global events, but as of now, they did not mention anything else on it, so we don't really have an idea of exactly what they'll do. They also mentioned that, or you kind of saw at the end of the video that they showed on Twitch, that players can earn commendations, but again, that's something they didn't really discuss in depth, so I guess, have to wait for more information on that. It also looks like in the base of operations, there'll be a new section that'll open up in the terminal. It'll be right between the recalibration table and the blueprint vendor, and it looks like it's possibly where you'll trade in those tokens from global events for whatever rewards that you can get. And what they kept stressing is that what they showed from 1.7 on State of the Game was only just a part of it. It wasn't everything. There is still more to come over the next handful of weeks. However, they did mention that there is not going to be a gear score increase coming with 1.7, which has some people upset, some people not. Part of the reason why we're going to be talking about that today. For For those that are more interested in some more in-depth details on this, on specifically global events, they can go to the Division forums and under the news thread for the Division game. There's a whole listing from Massive about what they talked about and what's coming up. So, Ginter, do you have anything to add on that?
I think it sounds like a load of fun.
From what I saw, it does look like it's going to be a lot of entertaining stuff. It looks like it's going to kind of apply some of the challenge aspect from Underground to the entire Light Zone world. So
I always thought that the game could use some of this kind of like talking about heads exploding and poison, kind of like fun little like unrealistic aspects. Like
Yep.
COD's got their zombie mode, which is super popular. I personally don't like it. It's okay, but I think it's fun. It's kind of like a little adds a little spice to the game.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of my first thought when I'm like, well, this is a little arcadey, but it gives you that, okay, something different, changes it up. The big thing that they stress is it forces players to play the game different. So, if you're running the danger zone one, obviously you can't be running around sniping because you better be one-shotting everything or those enemies are going to be taking you down. Just like if you're someone that likes to face tank everybody, probably not a good idea when you're running poisonous. So, and those are just a couple of the different modifiers they talked about. Like I said, that there should be a bunch more coming. So, the one other news thing here I wanted to bring up is it's not from Massive itself. I'm not sure where the original source is of this product, but I did see it on Twitter. Rob from SitRep Radio, you can see him at SitRep Radio Rob. Posted a gear attribute map for 1.6.1 that shows what attributes can be rolled on all 6 different gear pieces. It also shows min-max values. If you want to see a copy of this, it's posted on both our Twitter account at Shade Tech Radio, and it's also on the Division forums under the strategies and builds section. I think it's a great thing for both new players and veteran players. If you're sitting there with all your spreadsheets up and making your builds and min-maxing and tweaking, it's nice to see what you can get on your sets. Although, granted, probably most of those people already know that, but it's a nice little tool there. Did you get a chance to take a look at that, Ginter?
I haven't looked at it yet. Very busy week, but I will definitely be checking that out. But like you said, not official, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's not something officially released from Ubi. Granted, I mean, it's pretty simple to sit at the recalibration table, and if you just pick a piece of gear, you can see all this information. Just being able to look at this graphic, though, you don't have to sit at the recalibration table. I mean, you can start mapping out some of your stuff. For those people that are wandering around thinking, oh, I should make a build with XYZ, you can start looking at, what stuff you need to do
now,
on here.
What does XYZ do? What attribute does that?
It teaches you letters.
Oh, like the alphabet.
Done learns you your alphabet.
We should add that to our karaoke list. Oh, I just spoiled the special segment. I'm sorry, everybody.
We're gonna sing nursery rhymes this week.
He's gonna do a beautiful rendition of Itsy Bitsy Spider. I was moved. I was moved.
With the
yeah, he does the hand thing and beautiful voice too. Like, I was blown away by it. It took me back to my childhood. In fact, it took me back. Like, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's like do you ever smell when it's raining on blacktop and it takes you back to like kindergarten? Like you feel like, oh, I remember playing, like running out for recess and it was raining and like the blacktop smelled like because of the rain, and it was like that. It made me feel like a kid, like a child again. It was
right.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I try. I'm here for the people.
It's appreciated.
So that would be all the news we have so far for this week. So with that, we're going to move right into the incursion. We're going to go with one topic this week because it's kind of a there's some pretty well entrenched camps on this on both sides of the community. And so we figured we kind of give this a full show worth of time too. It is also by far was the leader in a poll that we posted on our Twitter account for possible topics to talk about. This got the most feedback from the community. So as we said, we're here for the community. We're going to kind of spitball some ideas and chew on this one for this week. And you guys let us know what you think. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the possible gear score increase. So from what we've heard so far, it's not coming with 1.7, but there's still at least 1.8, and it's not officially been. I mean, Hamish did say it shouldn't be coming, but it could change based on PTS, this, that, and the other thing. So, but anyway, so gear score increase. So we're going to kind of go what we think should be involved with this. Should it just be a straight gear score increase if there's one that comes? Should there be additional components to it? How does that affect the game? How does that affect the player base? So what kind of thoughts do you have on this, Ginter? Are you for or against a gear score increase?
Well, gear score increase. I honestly, I feel like when you increase the gear score, you just have to do it right. You know what I mean? Because I haven't really thought too much about it. Because I never really focus on gear. And that might sound weird, but I never really focus on gear score when I'm building things. I focus on like a lot of people, they'll just equip the newest best item they pick up. They're like, oh, it's got a higher gear score, so I'm gonna equip it, But for me, when I'm building, I build a specific I like to focus crit and crit damage, which a lot of people don't do. A lot of people just jump on the whatever is the best, for their gear score. It's just something that doesn't really affect me personally, because I know you have to have a certain gear score to do things, and I personally am like, oh, okay, well, that sucks, but I understand, I guess, because it classifies people differently, and it puts you with a team with your, it's needed, okay, I'll give it that. But for me, it's not something that I particularly pay attention to. Like when I'm building, I just kind of like, okay, well, what's best for me right now? Is using this item with a higher gear score going to be better than this item that has just a little bit lower of a gear score? You know what I mean? Or am I gonna lose what I'm focusing on? So that's how I feel about it. For me, I personally don't really care, like if they increase it or not. It's gonna tempt me to try to, because obviously, like I don't care, but I say I don't care, but I want to be like, I want to be in like say the underground or something and have a gear score like everybody else. I want to fit in. I don't want to be that guy with a low gear score. Everyone's like, "Oh, this guy, it's so small," like you're at the gym or something, and you're in the showers and you're just like, "Oh, look at my gear score, it's so low, small." That's never happened to me though.
No, you're the one that's running around pointing at people's gear score.
Yeah, I'm like, "Whoa, that is a nice gear score you got there." Wow.
I completely understand that, and I think when you're building a character, you shouldn't build towards gear score. You should definitely build towards what you're trying to do with that specific setup. So if you're trying to build a DPS build, if you're trying to build a support build, you shouldn't build to whatever number. You should be getting the pieces that help that. So I completely agree with that. I think the most people say, the people that are for a gear score increase is that it gives players something to grind for. It gives you a reason to play the game. It gives a reason for the current players in the game to stay with the game. Because if you're, where everybody stays at 256, you could only min-max your builds to a certain point, and then you're done. I mean, you could have, if you choose to, four tunes, six loadouts, so 24 different builds. If you really get to that point, and then it's like, okay, now what else can I do? So people are saying if there's an increase in gear score, that means you have to grind to get the new gear. People on the other side say, yeah, gear score increase would be nice, but if it's just for the sake of having a gear score and something else to grind, they're like, no, thank you, I'm not interested. People want, if they're going to be a gear score increase, they want increase in maybe world tiers, or they want some other reason for it. And then the other concern is that I've spent all this time to grind for this gear. I really like my MDR. I really like my Barrett's chest that I have. I don't want to have to grind for a new God roll piece. I want to be able to have that piece at the new level. So how do you handle that? Do you use a system kind of like Destiny where you can infuse higher level or higher gear score items into that, or break them down and increase the score on an item? With the world tiers, I was talking with someone on Twitter about this, got in kind of interesting conversation, and kind of mentioned the Diablo 3 system with the greater rifts, I think it was. And I'm not really familiar with the game, but he kind of explained it to me, and it sounds like you play those and there's an infinite number of levels. So in this case, it'd be like an infinite number of world tiers instead of just 5, where, once you hit 5 and you're geared up to that point, then you can jump into, say, 6. And once you get through 6, then you can jump into 7. It just kind of keeps going so that you can keep slowly ratcheting up up level.
Yeah, there's torment levels, so
that's okay. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. And they mentioned like an unlimited system or an infinite system like that.
I haven't played in a couple months, but they might have done something like that. I just remember there being a certain number of torments, but there are I'm pretty sure there were like greater rifts or something like that. I think they're just getting lazy with the naming, but it's just more difficult, I believe, and which makes sense. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, they raise the gear score, so you have something to strive for. Not that getting a high gear score is difficult. It's you just enter the next world tier, and you can just find items that just rocket you up, and it's about finding the right items with the high gear score, really, and that's so like you said, it gives people another goal to strive for. However, I feel that that's not what people should be striving for, because it's super easy to get to the next, the high gear score and everything. But just like in Diablo, I think the main goal is to just grind until you get the bomb rolls, RNG. Yeah, RNG. Had to think about that one. Random number generator. Back, you know what I'm talking about, right? RNG.
Yeah.
12-sided die. D&D.
Praise to the altar of RN Jesus.
I like that. I'm looking over here just because my screen's set up all crazy. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole
You're
thing.
over here for me. My camera's right here.
Right. Well, and another thing that people had mentioned is with gear score increases, possibly bringing in some type of like leaderboards, and it sounds like with the global events they're going to be doing that, but maybe something separate from the global events. Bring in a gear score, so first player, give some kind of list of like first player to hit the new gear score level. I don't know. I mean, fastest run, stuff to track fastest runs on like missions and things like that. Reasons for you to actually like try to grind this game to get that new gear score, get that new level. Possibly, more difficulty levels on missions or something like that would require a higher gear score, which would then offer better challenge. Kind of like how they have the legendary on 3 different missions now, but make it so that that could be something open for like all of the missions. Trying to think, what else could we? like I said, it's something that the shades are a nice addition there. I think
I feel
they
like a
do really
pilot.
well with the
I
back.
feel like a pilot, don't I? I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
start rocking these shades for the episodes. But the thing is, I can't take them off because there's no barber shop. So
Right.
stuck.
Well, that's a topic for a different discussion here.
We should have an episode where we just talk about it the whole time. Just vent, you know.
Just a random
Yeah. Just vent.
whatever off the cuff conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I said, with Gear Score, I think I agree with the community that is for it, but is for it with more than just a Gear Score, not to do it just for the sake of forcing people to grind the game again. I think that there should be more components to it. It seems like if they put more into it than just, hey, here's an increase in Gear Score, go get it. Um, I think that will be better received by the community than just saying, okay, well, we've changed the gear score. I mean, if there's no new content or no new items coming with it, why do it? You'd be just doing it for the sake of doing it. Um, but I think they should definitely look at, what some of the other games are, what some other games do. So like Destiny, what Diablo, some of the RPGs. I mean, the point's been made that this is a looter shooter, and the idea behind that is that you're constantly having to grind to get gear, whether it's to slightly tick up the score and get the slightly one better than another piece, or whether it's because there's a new gear score or new light level or whatever you want to call it. Players really have to play the game. One other thing to consider with it. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what would you think about a special queue that you can queue into a certain class? Back to World of Warcraft and all those other ones, Guild Wars, and I don't know if Guild Wars had it, but where you choose DPS, support, or tank. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that way people can focus more on, like, say I want to be a support, and I want to group up with people who are DPSs and a tank, and I want to specifically be the support for this random team that's being put together.
So you're thinking of, this is kind of like an aside from gear score. This is more a way to allow solo players to group up.
Yeah, I don't know where this popped in my head, but yeah, yeah. So have you ever played World of Warcraft?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I played for a little while back in the day when it was new. I got bored of it really fast because it's a boring game. And basically, what you would do is you would queue into the I don't know, I wouldn't call them raids. I don't know, they weren't raids, but they were some other thing where you go into dungeons. Dungeons, I think they were called. You go into dungeons and you have 3 DPSs, a tank, and a healer, or maybe it was some other combination. But basically, you kind of pick your role and you follow it. And I think that would be cool. And it doesn't have to be something that's forced upon people. There could be a special queue where you can choose how you want to be in a member of this team,
Right.
and you can be a medic. There can be a medic. There can be a support. I don't know if that's the same thing, but medic and support, those can easily be the same thing. A DPS, a guy who focuses damage, and the guy who focuses on taking damage and pulling aggro, and you know what I mean? Someone who goes in there and just with the shield or whatever, or really high armor. They focus toughness over DPS and electronics, and they're a bullet sponge. They're bullet king. They go in there and they take bullets, and while the other DPSers do their thing, and the healer keeps the tank healed. And yeah, it's very old school. dungeon raid, whatever you want to call
Mm-hmm.
it. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
would kind of bring a more tactical approach to the game. I mean, the game itself, bolsters a tactical type combat where you take cover and you use your skills as needed. But there's only so many skills you can use at a time. You can't. It's not like you can switch between your things during combat. So that's something that I always thought would be a cool little addition. How do you feel about that?
I think it kind of changes. I guess it would all depend on how you do that. I mean, if it's just gear based, that's one thing. Um, if it's you specifically have to like spec into a character, kind of like you're playing a fighter or a healer in like a game, or
Well,
kind of
that's
like how they have them in Destiny. If you have to do a specific class and it's like, okay, now I want to play something else, I have to start a completely new character.
but that's the beauty of divisions. You don't have to spec as a certain
Right,
class.
right.
So what I'm saying is, you don't start your game deciding what role you're going to be, but when you select to queue into or matchmake into the dungeon or whatever level, then that's when you choose which class you want to take. So you can switch to a tank or a DPS after each match, if you want to switch things up. Because I remember back in the day how hard it was to find a healer. So everyone was DPS, and you'd be sitting there in the queue forever waiting for a healer to join the queue, or a tank. No one ever wanted to be the tank or the healer because it was kind of boring, And for those games, you had to start off as those things. You had to create a healer, or create a DPS, or create although you could respec, but generally, you choose your role when you start the game, like hunter, warrior, mage.
Right. Yep.
You choose what you're going to be. But with the division, you can switch things up before each time you queue. So so that's the difference. So you don't have to choose anything from the gate. You can choose it right on the fly before your queue, and then boom, you're and that way you kind of get a more tactical feel. Like you go in there with a certain role. You go in there going, okay, I'm here to do damage. That's what I'm going to focus. I'm going to let my healer or my support make sure that I'm good and have my ammo and have health. And the tank is going to take care of pulling aggro and doing damage and stirring things up. And I'm going to sit back and do damage. That's because that's my role.
Right. Right.
Just a
Well,
thought.
it's an interesting idea. Possibly something.
I'm surprised that that was never an implemented thing, to be honest with you. And even just as an option, it doesn't have to be something that's forced upon people. You can go into maybe they call it a tactical queue,
Mm-hmm.
or something, or a assigned role queue. I don't know how I want to call it, but
Right.
that's just a thought.
Well, and it's an interesting thought. So, kind of circling back here. So ultimately, after all that we've kind of talked about, maybe even adding in this tactical queue system into gear score, what are your final thoughts on a gear score increase? For, against?
I'm for it just because it's not something that I particularly worry about. Because it's not impossible. It's really not that hard to jump up in gear score. I mean, that's part of my whole coddling the players thing, but we won't get into that.
Right.
So, yeah.
I guess I'm kind of with you. I agree that there should be some type of gear score increase. If it's not with 1.7, it should come with 1.8. But I think that it should be more than just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think that there should be more tied to it, that there should be a reason for it, whether it's new difficulty levels on missions or leaderboards that somehow track based on gear score, or something like that. There should be more than just a reason, just be like, okay, now you need to redo all your gear. And I completely agree with if and when they do put in a new gear score increase, that there should be some type of way to bump up your current gear if you like it to the higher level. Whether it's some combination of breaking down higher level gear or collecting division tech or materials like weapon parts or whatever it is that makes up that item in a blueprint. That I think you should be able to find some way to get your gear up to that new level without having to actually grind. Because
I personally don't agree with that.
No.
No, just because it's a loot game,
Mm-hmm.
If I can just upgrade all my gear all the time, then why would I bother going to try to find new loot?
Well, they put the system into Destiny, and Destiny's got people that have been playing it for 3 years now. So it worked. It worked there.
Destiny's got such a great story,
I was think the Division's story. I was gonna say, I think the story in the Division's a lot better than Destiny.
I agree. I totally agree. Did they implement that in the Destiny? See, I didn't play. I played a little bit of Destiny, but then I stopped. I didn't know they implemented. So let me just get this straight. So say you have a chest armor that you love, and it's just like it's got a gear score, the highest gear score at the time, and then now they're dropping higher gear score items out, and you're like, oh, I love this chest armor, but there's better chest armor out there with higher stats now. So you're saying that you want some kind of way to be able to level up that current chest armor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way the system worked in Destiny, and they've changed it, and it's been a while. I haven't played Destiny in over a year, but if I remember right, when I last played, they made it a 1-to-1 system. When it originally came out, say you had for example, you had a piece of equipment that was 200, and you really liked it. You wanted to keep it. The new level became 250, and say you got a new 250 piece, you could basically break that down or sacrifice it, or what they call infuse it into the piece that you had, and it would increase the gear score or light level in the case of Destiny. And I can't remember what the percentages was, but it wasn't exactly. You wouldn't go from 200 to 250. It was maybe to 210 or 215. So you'd have to keep getting pieces that were higher and slowly eke it up. And then if I remember right before I left about a year ago, it became, if I put a 250 into it, it would go to 250. And part of that was because there were certain things that, there were some pieces that you had to do long and drawn out quests for and such to get them. And people didn't want to have to go through and do those again just to get that piece. You could argue the other side is if you really want it, put in the time and effort for it. But some of them it was it's a grind just to get it, and it's you don't want to put that in. So I think something like that should be put in place so that players, because I think if you go to just adding in a gear score increase and you don't have some type of infusion like that, especially since it's been so long since the last gear score increase, I think there's a lot of players that have built up a lot of equipment that they've gotten used to using, and all of a sudden with a new gear score increase, all that stuff becomes less effective. Yeah. So, if you're regularly, say every, couple months, 2 or 3 months, gear score is going, the gear score is going to pop up every, then you maybe focus on certain items. You don't build this huge collection of gear. Because then when that new gear score increase hits, then you lose, all that gear becomes useless. So, but because it's not scheduled like that, it's not set in a system like that where it's going to be changing on a regular basis, I think that there should be some way for players to increase. And maybe it's something like, I have my 256 MDR and the new level is say 280. Maybe it's I have to get a 280 MDR to put into it. So you have to get maybe the same item or something like that. Or maybe it's like a blueprint that you have to get to be able to make it, and then that somehow works. But I think there should be some type of system that kind of bridges the gap between something real harsh of just increasing the score and something of going, oh, here's all your stuff now is the new level. So.
Okay. I understand
So,
what you're saying.
though, I mean, if you're a hardcore player and you're playing 20 to 30 hours a week, it's frustrating, but now you have a reason to play 20 to 30 hours a week again. If you're a player that plays, 5 to 10 hours a week because you have other things in your life and you kind of do this just to kind of entertain yourself, to kind of relax, blow off steam, are you going to really want to grind for an extended period of time to try to get back to where you are? Maybe, maybe not. So those are my last thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I'm by no means a hardcore player. I'm very casual. Um, now I'm now just because life and stuff, but
Right.
I still, I don't know, man. I'm still maybe I'm too a traditionalist. I don't know.
You know, I think with this game, because of the unique situation, the unique setup that it has, they're always going to be balancing PvE and PvP, and they're always going to be balancing hardcore players and casual gamers. And unfortunately, that means for every time someone wins, obviously someone's going to lose out. If this was a like an esports game or some type of competitive game like
Like League
CS:GO
of
or something
Legends.
or League of Legends, yeah.
Love
If
League
it
of
was some
Legends.
Yeah, if it was something that was a competitive game, that's a competitive game. I understand being like, okay, hey, we're gonna just kick the bar up, and you have to get to that point, deal with it, or jump out of the game. I think that's a different setup than something like this, where
I got the
you
gold in that game.
did you
Hmm.
never played the game,
It's a fun game.
so. But it's something to consider, and I think when people get real salty one way or the other, I think they have to look at the fact that Massive is trying to cater to the player base, and
You know, okay, I'll give you that. So, it's something that you don't have to do, obviously. It's something
right.
that you can choose to do. For me, I'm going to go out and grind until I find a better item. For other players, maybe they'll upgrade their items, and that's totally fine. I am a very tolerant person.
Mm.
Um, and I won't judge if people want to take, you know, that way out. I don't judge.
I think if
Was that
PvE and
too much?
PvP were no, I that's
I
I
just
mean
wanted to laugh.
that's a fair statement. I mean,
Okay.
I think if the PvP and PvE were more separated, that you could have, this is players that play PvP, this is players that play PvE, then I think having a more grueling grinding system could make sense because, like you said, if you're having fun playing at the level you're at in PvE and you don't want to grind for new gear, don't play at the level that you're playing at. Whereas in PvP, because it's a competitive spot, you're going to need to grind to get the gear to be up to the level to be able to beat the other PvP players. But since like Last Stand and DZ and some of these things are kind of meshed together, specifically DZ, maybe not so much Last Stand, but you know, if you make it so that you have to grind and it's a tough system to use, you're gonna possibly alienate people from the dark zone because they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to go in there because I'm going to be, gear score 256, and 2 weeks later there's going to be min-maxed god roll builds of whatever the new gear score is that are going to just roll me every time I walk in the door. Why do I want to do that? Forget that. I'm just going to go, play PvE. So, and then what happens with that? Then those players that play PvP get salty because there's nobody to play against, and it's kind of like it just causes more friction in the community. So, like I said, I think it should be more kind of a bridge between a very rigid system and a, like you said, coddling or hand holding system. But there should be something in there, some way to kind of do something with your gear, even if it's, you can kind of build it halfway up or get some parts of your gear or something like that. But I think there should be something in there if they're going to increase the gear score.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good to me.
So with that, we're going to head into the Division Forum. So we're still getting a lot of good comments and feedback from listeners. We definitely appreciate that. As I said earlier, that we ran a poll, and that's where we came up with the gear score topic for this week. We encourage our listeners to keep sending suggestions. Send them to either our Division Forums on Twitter, at Division Forums, or divisionforums.com, to Shade Tech Radio at Shade Tech Radio, or on shadetechradio.com, or post comments on YouTube videos. We had a pretty good conversation going there. Post comments when we post up on SoundCloud or iTunes. But just give us feedback on what you want to hear. I've started compiling a huge list. I've got probably close to a dozen topics. Pretty much everything's come from a couple initial ideas we had, but most all of it's come from the little poll that we did, and then all of the conversations that we've been pulling from this. So for those of you that haven't seen, when the poll closed out, we actually had 246 votes on it. Gear score increase was the top topic, with 39% of the votes. Second place was builds with 29% of the votes. Rounding out third place was being rogue and rogue hunting, so kind of all things rogue, at 27%. And then we did get 5% on other, and that's where some of these other comments have come in. So if you haven't seen kind of what happened on that discussion, I would definitely say pull up that poll, take a look at the thread there, just kind of see what kind of conversation went on there. Look at the comments from the episode 2 YouTube video. You'll see a lot of good conversation, and then you kind of see what we're thinking about. So like I said, if you do have more ideas, please send those along to us. We definitely appreciate those. Something else I wanted to mention is that after we posted the video from episode 2, there were some concerns that we were trying to be like the state of the game, and that we're joking around, that we should be a little bit more serious. Kind of as we mentioned in episode 1, our goal is to basically be informative, entertaining, and lighthearted.
So much funnier than those guys.
I mean, we're casuals. We're not hardcore players. We're not doing how to max out builds and things like that. We're just kind of saying this is the news. This is kind of what's going on in the community. This is going on in the game. And, here's some stuff that we find interesting. So we're going to talk about it for a little bit.
Plus, I carry a gun on me all the time.
Well, there's that too.
You don't see those guys doing that.
No, you don't. Probably because they have different gun laws out of the United States, but that's a different story. So I guess that's one thing we upped the half-loaded podcast crew. So
half-loaded? What does that mean?
Well, you have your gun and I don't. So
you don't have a gun?
No, not
you have
not
no
in my
guns
house.
in your home.
One that doesn't belong to me, and I have no ammo for it.
You should get some ammo for that.
Don't have any need to. I don't have any problems with guns. Before you start to get on your high horse there,
Hold on, real quick. I always say it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's all.
Well, that's true. Again, different conversation for a different day. I agree with that, but it's like I said, different conversation for a different day. So one last thing out of the feedback and comments from this week is there was a request for a more in-depth line-by-line review of patch notes, and Ginter so courteously volunteered me to do videos of more in-depth patch notes reviews. I know it was a joke, and I probably won't do that. We try to just highlight the most important things, and we do list the patch notes on the website on divisionforums.com. They can also be found elsewhere, but I think there are some other content creators, namely YouTubers, that do really good reviews of that, a lot better than my dry, boring self would possibly do in a video.
Come on, I wouldn't say that.
No, I guess if I read through them while I was playing or something like that to have something going in the background. I mean, if I put some effort into it, I could come up with it. But I think there's other people that specifically do that. So
yeah, but you are very good at going in depth about these things.
Right. Well, and that's part of why we're gonna, instead of doing all of them, because like I mentioned in reply to the comment, is that it would take a lot of time, and it could easily be an hour and a half cast just on the notes, or an hour and a half video on them, because a
Some
lot of
people
them,
would
a lot
probably
of
like
times,
that.
well, and I do understand that, but I think it's more useful for us to highlight things that are going to affect the players most, or change the game the most from one update to the next, or one patch to the next, promote those on the show in our news, and then direct players to the full patch notes for them to look at. um, I think that's probably the best way to do it. I guess if we did get a overwhelming response for people wanting me to do some patch notes reviews or videos or whatnot, I could try to do that. Like I said, if I pull them up on the computer or something like that, and just kind of play some Division in the background or whatever, and just kind of record that, maybe that might work. So
I'll even sit here and make jokes while you do it.
well, I guess if that's something that you guys want, you know how to reach us. Tweet at us, send us an email, shadetechradio@divisionforums.com. Post on the forums. Just let us know that's something that you really want. So that's pretty much what we got for you this week. So as I mentioned, you can reach me on Twitter at deadsockpuppet_. I'm also on the Division forums. If you go to my Twitter profile, you can get links to my Twitch account and my YouTube channel, as well as my personal email. Ginter, why don't you tell listeners how they can reach you?
All right. You can reach me on Twitter at G1NT3R, just like it says right there. Other way, yeah. Right there, yeah.
Yeah.
No, other way. Okay. Right there. Right there. Or you could, yeah, there you go. Or you can reach me on the Division forums, or at Division forums on Twitter. And I would like for you guys to give me some feedback on my hair, how it looks today. I think it looks pretty cool. Maybe the glasses. I shaved a little differently today. I'm very, very into my looks. So if you guys just want to give me a little ego boost, that would be cool. And yeah, and the show too. Tell us what you think about the show. That's important. If you like, which room in the boo you guys want me in next week? These guys are very boring. They don't speak or anything, and they're no fun. Like I want to be in a room where people come up and poke at me and ask me questions and stuff. These guys are just lame guys behind me here. They're probably
I think
busy.
I think that might be this week's poll. Which room in the boo do you want Ginter to appear in next
I'll
week?
even sit outside. It's a little chilly out there, but if you guys want that, I can put a coat on, and I can, bundle up out there. Maybe get see, is there any attractive NPCs?
No, not really.
There's
No.
really not. Wow, that's a shame. And you know what? That's not true. The doctor chick.
Jessica Candle?
Candle, is that how you say it? Okay,
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, she's not bad, but isn't she? I think she's of the other persuasion, which is cool. I'm sure. I mean, look at this. I could probably, change that. So yeah, whatever. That's cool. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And please continue watching, because we love providing this show. Yeah.
So like Ginter said, we are sponsored by the Division Forums, which is a fan site for everything Division. Check us out on the divisionforums.com or at Division Forums on Twitter. You can reach the show on Twitter at Shade Tech Radio. You can also reach us via email at shadetechradio at thedivisionforums.com. Stop by our website, shadetechradio.com, where you can see links to the show, cast bios, all sorts of fun stuff that we put up there. Finally, our podcast is available on iTunes and SoundCloud, and video available on YouTube. If you like what you hear, please share with your friends. Give us a sub, follow us, leave us comments, reviews, just so we kind of know what we're doing, whether we're doing a good job, and what you're really interested in. And finally, thank you again for listening. This has been Shade Tech Radio, reminding you to keep an eye on your Shade Tech, and we'll see you in the fight to take back New York.
Agents, watch your 6 and your 3 and your 9 and your 12 and pretty much everywhere around you, because you never know. Never know. Oh, wait. It's going to fade to black.
We can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind.